Welcome to the acclaimed podcast, The Deep Dive, featuring your esteemed hosts, Andy Monitor and Drew Dinzik, powered by BETSPERTS.
Welcome to The Deep Dive. NFL preseason prep rolls on. I got to tell you, man, these have been more fun to record than I had even hoped. I forgot how much I enjoyed doing NFL podcasts. These have felt effortless. They have been like a good kind of refresher on, what I think matters, what I kind of been able to sort of synthesize from, last year's experience doing this and last year betting the NFL. Would you agree? This has been a good experience for you so far?
No, these are always fun. These are always great. You jog when you're doing your research or just talking back and forth with you or talking with the chat. They always do kind of jogs your memory, and it really does. This is how I get ready. Like, this is one of the most important things getting ready for me is just doing the research for these. And yeah, I mean, some of our hot takes last week on the Falcons, Panthers. If you didn't check those out, make sure to pop back and look for those. I think I'll have a playlist with all of them on the YouTube channel if you want to watch them all at once, or kind of create something where you can engorge yourself in previews at some point. if you're
engorge yourself. I'm not sure that's the right use of the word.
No, yeah. It absolutely is not. But either way, they'll all eventually be in one playlist on the YouTube channel. So yeah, week 3 rolls on, previews. AFC South.
Speaking of fun, how about the Texans? Let's talk some Texans,
yes,
buddy.
We try to take the Jay Leno approach, and we don't like to get too opinionated on legal issues. We've avoided. We've come out as anti-corona. I remember that. Absolutely. We were anti-corona. We're very anti-crime in general. Don't do the crimes.
My God.
But that's not what you want from, like, go watch First Take, I guess, if you want a hot take on legal issues, because like the AB stuff, it is, let it sort itself out. If he was a shithead, he was a shithead. He should go to jail. Same thing goes with all these. But yeah, there's a very big specter looming over the season here. And even without that, this wasn't going to be a fun year. Last year was not a fun year. In our preview last year for the Texans, the biggest thing that stuck out was
poor management of the roster and some of the decisions in terms of selling future assets for current players who may not be good, and getting rid of, and really the worst trade in the moment, the worst trade that we have seen in the NFL, sending Hopkins for David Johnson and giving up assets to make that trade, to take on a running back with a bad contract. Like, that was, and this is accepting the fact that Hopkins may be a little overrated, but it doesn't change the fact that that was still the worst trade we've seen in the last decade.
The Tunsil thing was not that much better. Like, just, constant. I think the word I was looking for was incompetence from the top.
Incompetence. Thank you.
Complete incompetence. Like the Tunsil move, the trade for David Johnson.
Tunsil's a fine player, but they gave up a freaking farm for him.
That's the thing. What they gave, he said that. He's like, I would have traded that for me. Like, I'd take that for me. Like, it was way too much. Like, you have to look at value. Like, you could say, the best player in the league. Like, you could trade for Patrick Mahomes, but if you had to go away your first round pick for the next 60 years, it's just not something you could do. There's a value to everything. And the Tunsil thing, they gave away too much. The David Johnson trade was horrible. Really, a big part of what we hit in the previews too was, boy, they have a rough start to the schedule.
Yeah, it was nasty.
It was a nasty start. 2 weeks ago there, we talked about Washington's schedule. We had a nasty, like, entirety of the schedule. And this was kind of maybe setting ourselves a point where if they're 0-4, are we betting on the Texans? And I think we batted the idea around. It didn't happen. Like, that wasn't ever something that we were going to be excited about. That team was a mess. Bill O'Brien ended up done.
Do you remember what week they fired him?
I think it was week 5. I think it was after the 0-4 start.
0-4. Okay. All right.
He was first coach fired.
Who was the temp coach? That is escaping me right now.
Cornell?
Yes, it was.
I think it was Cornell.
Great pull. What a pull. I remember him.
I like Romeo Cornell.
Yeah, and he was
Nice guy.
But there were a couple of times during the end of the season where I thought he put some guys in harm's way to help himself, which I was a little disappointed by. But yeah, the season went off the rails with an 0-4 start. Two of those losses were very expected against the Chiefs and the Ravens. Now they weren't competitive in either of those games, which was a red flag. But then to come into week 3, I believe they were nearish a pick 'em. It was at least a semi coin flippy type of expectation against the Steelers and lose by 7. That was when you kind of was like, okay, things are going sideways, on top of the fact that there was a ton of pressure on Bill O'Brien having kind of made such a very publicly obvious poor trade in the Hopkins trade. And he was losing the locker room. He was losing the team. Like there was a lot, there was some unrest starting to stir up with your kind of most important player in Deshaun Watson. And, everything started going sideways at that point. Loss of the Vikings 0-4, nail in the coffin, season over for the Texans. And at that point, it was like, let's evaluate some of our talent. Let's figure out what we want to do here. But they did kind of pull themselves back into a 4-7 record with a little 3-1 stretch coming out of the bye week. And it's funny because you remember a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about the NFC East, it's like, if you were in the NFC East and you were 4-7, you were live. you could have still won that division. But the Texans were extremely not live. And then they finished on a 5-game sked, finished 4-12, which at least gave them a great draft pick.
That's fair. That's fair. Oops. Yeah, their first draft pick, the first player they drafted this year, was taken 67th overall. Oopsie daisy. Yeah, you traded away multiple years worth of good draft picks for players on and it's one thing. Oh, I don't know. Like pick a team who's really in a catbird seed right now. Like if Tampa Bay didn't have a first or second round pick going into this year, it'd be like, you know what? Fuck it. They won a Super Bowl.
Sure.
They still bring back a ton of talent. They're going to be a favorite to win their division. They're probably going to be a favorite to win their conference.
Yep.
The fact that they are where they are, I don't care. The trade-off was worth it. They've reached the pinnacle. But to have done these things and gotten yourself into such a predicament with your cap situation, your draft chest situation, your talent on your roster, I mean, not even throwing the Deshaun Watson issues into the mix here, everything outside of that has, been caused by the leadership group here has been like, oh man, like this isn't getting better anytime sooner. If you can't add anything in the draft, and yes, I know you can add players other ways, but boy, when you've leveraged the future and this was the results you got, that's a rough look. And that's why a GM has to go. That's why a coach has to go. That's why you do a rebuild. But again, we're doing these first. This is, the first one on Monday because they are the lowest odds to win the division. And that's, obviously we're going to get to the Jaguars, who have a college head coach we're not sure about, a rookie we've never seen play, a talent devoid roster, and actually not the easiest schedule. And we are putting Houston first because they're probably worse.
Yeah.
The implied win totals, I think, are fairly similar. Like these teams aren't going to be hugely different, but Houston gets to go first because they're a bigger dumpster fire. And yes, 2020 was a mess. And I guess where do you go from here?
Well, the cloud. Let's talk about the cloud hanging over the season. I assume you're talking about Jack Easterby.
Yeah, I mean the fish rots from the head, the snake rots from the head, something rots from the head.
Yeah. Okay, sounds good. No, let's flip over to the 2021 odds and just kind of gaze at the ridiculousness that we have in store here.
It's a big number.
What price would you need to bet the Texans to win the Super Bowl? Right now, they're 150 to 1. That I feel like I would rather play 150 to 1. Like there are some things that you can bet on in sports at 150 to 1 that actually kind of have a chance. Like I'm thinking like a Joe Burrow Heisman kind of a play, or what are some other 150 to 1s that have cashed?
There's a bunch of golfers every week that I would bet at 150 to 1 before I'd consider this.
Even remotely, right?
Yeah, Chase Seifert was 150 to 1. I had him on my card the other week, and he was I think he was second place after 3 rounds or something like that. It was
I am
leaderboard.
not averse to betting 150 to 1. I will make those sort of bets for a tennis tournament. Absolutely, a guy can get hot and win a couple. At what price would you consider betting the Texans to win the Super Bowl? Like, is there a price?
1,000 to 1, I guess. I don't know.
Is that even really bettable?
That's worth $10, right? Just in case.
I don't know, man. I mean,
2,000 to 1. I don't.
$10 is like $10 can get you a pretty decent sandwich.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'd rather have the sandwich. There is true or false. There's value on the no make the playoffs at minus 1,200. Should that be minus 10,000? It's the AFC.
It's the AFC. Yeah.
Maybe.
What is the path? Like, what has to go right for them to make the playoffs? Like, I guess
Watson has to be cleared of everything.
Cleared of everything. He has to play
all 17
games. Yeah. And he has to have his best season as a pro. Right. And then they can maybe win the AFC South if a couple things break their way in terms of other teams not doing well.
Tannehill injury.
Sure.
Lamar regression.
Wentz is who we thought he was.
Wentz is pretty bad. Yeah, we might need a couple AFC teams to be.
Well, no, this is just to make the playoffs. No, so all they need to do is win that AFC South.
Win the division. Win the division. Yeah.
All they need to do is win the South.
I'm trying to hurt like every other team.
So Wentz happens
Wentz is
to.
Bad. Tannehill gets hurt.
Tannehill gets hurt, and Urban Meyer is not ready for the NFL. And at that point, if Watson plays 17, he's still capable of a clear top 4 performance in the NFL, assuming he still has the locker room, which is a huge unknown. But yeah, I think honestly, minus 1,200 on the no seems to, like, in the back of my head, that's fair.
Yeah, it's probably fair.
Yeah.
Win total 4.5.
Also, in the back of my head, that's fair.
That's probably a good number. We'll get to the schedule right now and tell you why.
Yeah, and honestly, like, you can't. And here's why. I can give you a very decent read why not to bet the under, and I can give you a decent read why not to bet the over. Right? No. You don't bet the over because Watson could miss the season. You don't bet the under because Watson could not miss the season. Right? Like,
the people that have like postulated what will happen to him are just guessing. Like, some people have said maybe 4 games, maybe half the season. No one knows.
No one knows.
And yeah, if he's out for the whole season, this is a pop quiz hot shot. Who's the backup right now?
Boy, is it Nathan Peterman? No, I'm just kidding.
I don't even know.
You don't have it? You don't have it up?
I don't have it right in front of me. I'm pulling it up.
I think I do know. I think it's the kid from the Florida with the big ass.
Is it Davis Mills? They drafted
no.
Davis Mills.
I think it's Driscoll. Jeff Driscoll.
Oh, Jeff Driscoll. You're right.
Formerly of the Lions. Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's Driscoll. So yeah, the Jeff Driscoll show would be unfortunate if you have a Texans over in your pocket at 4.5.
What about Tyrod Taylor? Is he down there anymore? I don't know. Either way, yeah, it doesn't matter. Whoever would be stepping in, if Deshaun Watson were to miss the whole season because his legal situation blew up and it turned out he was very guilty and maybe even went to jail, it would definitely be under 4.5. But if it all magically went away, like sometimes things happen in the world of pro athletes getting in trouble, I would be very poor. I'd be very, sad about sitting on a poor position there. So I don't think this is a team I want to get too involved with until I know more. I know we try to hold some of these off for later in the season or later in the preview season, but this division, the rest of it had a lot of good talking points. And really, what is the true difference between Watson? Like, I mean, look at they're not favored in a game. Three game difference. Well, I'm just saying it doesn't change them like going to the playoffs or not. It doesn't make them a true threat to do anything in the postseason or not. Like without Watson, it might be like the worst team in the league. With Watson, they might win like 6-7 games.
Yeah, no, I'm there, and I guess you brought up Tyrod Taylor. I missed that transaction somehow. He is on this roster.
Yes,
now.
he is.
He probably is QB2. He's good enough to be QB2 for sure. I guess I would think mostly expecting half of us when I'm building out projections for this Houston team. I'm projecting Watson coming back week 9 against Miami.
If you were projecting out the season, and by if I mean you are, because you have to be, because we're getting ready for NFL season, what are you using for your numbers? Are you making an assumption about Watson?
Yeah, I think I'm assuming that he is going to be unavailable for at least the first 8 weeks. And part of the reason I'm there is I'm looking at the look-ahead lines, which I feel like are basically implying that. I don't think that the guys who have the look-ahead lines have any inside information or anything like that. But I also think if Watson was expected to be out on the field week 1, the Houston Texans would not be 3-point dogs at home to Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars. Similarly, 13.5 to the Browns, 14 to the Bills. Like these are big numbers, which implies Tyrod Taylor's coming out of that tunnel. So I guess if and in looking at the schedule, you get down to the end, later in the season, you get a little bit more friendly numbers, a 1 against the Jets, a couple of 4.5 against the Jags and the Chargers. Those reflect higher likelihood that Watson will be available. But I think even outside Watson, this is still a team that lacks talent at every other position on the field. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and I mean, even last year too, they had a bit of a cluster injury at receiver, and they've had injuries at the receiver position before. But outside of just the poor leadership, poor coaching, poor game plan, losing skill position players, and not being able to backfill, like they did have some injury concerns. It was a trying year. Plus, you can say we're going to pose Bill O'Brien being gone as a positive, as everyone should. But with every positive, there is a little glimmer of negative, and the negative is in the short term with coach transitions. Coach transitions are difficult. It doesn't matter where you're at in a skill, like where your team's at. The team is usually a bad team at that point if they've gotten rid of a coach, unless it was just a retirement. But being a bad team like that, the transition doesn't matter as much. It's like the difference between 4 wins and 6 wins, I guess. So I give him a little credit there, fighting through injuries and having to get used to a new guy. But at the same time, this year, are we, what positives can we possibly take away? David Culley?
No, I mean, yeah, I mean you brought it up. The schedule's tough. This is the only team that is 5 times a double-digit underdog before the season even starts. Like that is a humongous mountain to climb out of. Even if setting aside whether or not you have your QB1 available right now, the Texans, you will be unsurprised to learn, are the 32nd power ranked team. 32 out of 32. Their power number by the market is -7. They have the worst offense projected in the NFL and the worst defense. Now, when you look at the roster, is that reasonable? I would say yes.
Yes.
The talent problem on this roster is really tough to wrap your head around. This is the consequence of letting Bill O'Brien run your franchise, where he was making decisions in a way that was trying to kind of save his job for as long as humanly possible and mortgage the future for wins now. And I look at specifically the defensive side of the ball. Man, where is the talent? Where is it? Like there aren't even guys that I think are worth the contracts they have. And there's no one good. Like this is a really, 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 really tough roster to grade from a per player. If you're going to construct a defensive rating based on player strength, who of these guys on this defensive side of the ball are better than replacement level?
It's tough. Yeah, the entirety of this team is devoid of talent in general. I don't know if I'm not making a big thing out of JJ Watt leaving. Like I at this point in his career, obviously he's better than who will replace him, but it's not huge. But yeah, the people, Shaq Lawson, um, Merciless,
Maybe a couple years ago.
roll. Yeah, I mean,
Both these guys.
I think they're at league average. Bradley Roby.
Is he the puncher?
He got some injury. He got in a little trouble, but he's still good. Like he's a good player. He didn't ask me if he thought he'd be able to stay out of trouble or stay on the field. He's a good player. Yeah, I'm running out of names here.
Yeah, it's not great. I don't grade anyone on this defensive side of the ball as better than replacement level. Merciless a couple years ago, I would have said so. Lawson a couple years ago, I would have said so. Collins isn't terrible. Collins is not. That was not a bad. Malik Collins is not a bad addition, but he's not a bad addition if you have a championship competing defense that just needs one run stopping tackle. Like this team is going to get run on and they are going to get passed on. And you can pick your poison however you want to poison them, and you can poison them. Like this is not a defense that is going to be getting off the field often. And I think you can start and end, any kind of expectation of winning football there, because Tyrod Taylor, if he is starting your first 8 weeks, if he's starting all 16 games for you this season, he is only really good enough to take a team of excellent players around him and get you to maybe 500 or better. He is not going to elevate the performance of this offense enough to where they are going to be competitive in football games. They are going to be, there's going to be a lot of lopsided games for this Texans team this year. The fact that even on your offensive side of your ball, you really have Laramie Tunsil, Marcus Cannon. Those are fine players. Justin Britt's fine player.
Decent receivers, a good left tackle.
Yeah, but you're paying them way too much. You're paying Cooks too much. You're paying Cobb too much. You're paying David Johnson, your running back, too much money. I don't know if I throw
Cobb in the decent category anymore.
No, I'm just saying you're paying him too much. I'm throwing him in the overpaid category.
Yeah, no, I'll give you that. And yeah, like you said, last touch on the schedule, 10 games. 10 games are a touchdown or worse dog. That's a shitload. That's bad. This is going to be a rough season. Realistically, if you could do everything right, this is like a 3 to 4 year turnaround. Like this is not a quick turnaround to fix this either.
Yeah, no, there are other teams that tanked, like the Miami Dolphins, that bounced super hard. Like my power rating on the Miami Dolphins when they were losing to getting shut up by the Patriots, getting shut up by the Ravens and the Cowboys early in that season, that was 2 years ago, not 3, right? 2 years ago.
2 years. I don't know. Corona really screwed up our time.
I think that was just 2 years ago.
Yeah. The year they lost like 59-0. Yeah, right off the bat to the Ravens.
Yeah, and then
they were like 24-point dogs. Yeah, it was
that my power number for that team was like all time low. And I don't think the Texans are there yet based on the way the market rates them. But if Watson truly is gone, they could get there. Really, they absolutely could get there. And and the turnaround for the Dolphins was rapid because they had so many assets to really help themselves out of that mess. And the Texans just don't have the assets. If Watson is cleared, last question on Watson before we move on to some of the other other things about this team, because we're kind of covering it all in a big hodgepodge here. But if Watson is cleared to play, or if he is given a declarative suspension for whatever, if it all goes away and he is given a suspension and it is a known when he will be available, would you expect the Texans to pull a trigger to trade him? Because he has made it clear that he's not interested in coming back.
Yeah, before we had any of this, hey, I'm going to allegedly sexually, assault probably these masseuses. He was saying, I'm done with this team. Like people kind of forget about that whole narrative because a bigger narrative has definitely reared its ugly head. I would think so. I saw a tweet linking him to the Eagles. I could say there's, at his best, he's a top 5 quarterback. There's got to be plenty of teams that want one of those. So I would think there's several teams that would be linked to him. But no, you just can't do that now. You can't be even working out a framework of that deal, I wouldn't think, because there's too much going on in the legal world. So I would think, yeah, there's a decent chance to build up your war chest again. You talk about that Miami team. Miami has had like 75 draft picks over the last 2 years. Miami has really done a good job with bringing in free agents. Miami is, well run. This team has been so poorly run that their draft chest, their war chest of draft picks has been very light. They're set up in a weird way where they drafted some, they went for some talent, got rid of draft picks. They need to get in a position like Miami was last year, the year before, where you can draft a bunch of guys, where you have a bunch of cap space, where you can bring some people in. Like, they need to get to that spot, and probably the biggest first step would be getting rid of some of the stars. Like, get rid of by the time Watson, by the time you can turn this team around, if you don't get rid of Watson, it's kind of a two-part thing. If you don't get rid of Watson, you're not getting the draft picks that you could get for him. So that slows you down. And then if you do keep him, even beside the point, by the time you could turn this thing around, he's probably too expensive to be doing that sort of thing anyway. So you're stuck in a bad position. I think you're probably stuck getting rid of him, and that's what I would be doing.
Okay, so I'm going to set the market then at Watson takes another snap under center for the Texans in his career. I'm going to put this line at minus 300 no, plus 300 yes.
I think that's a little heavy. I think they need to trade him. He might just say no, like, I'm not playing. Although he is in a different kind of position now. Like,
his leverage is a little.
His
little
leverage
less,
is a little different. That's fair. That's fair. That's fair. I don't know what would happen. I don't know where his mind frame is at. Like, his mindset being, if he were, all these charges were, if he was acquitted, everything went away. And would he still be just hardline? I'm never playing for the Texans again. No idea.
It does feel like there's a little bit of smoke between the Easterby and the lawyer that's going after him. So to the point where he may be even more entrenched, and I will never take another snap for the Texans again. But for all we know, they feel like we're not going to be, we're not going to put you on the field in a Texans uniform again. But either way, trading him, they get how many cents on the dollar?
60?
50? 60?
Yeah. I'd be happy with that.
Okay. Who's the most likely trade destination in your opinion?
I mean, the Eagles have been linked, but
they have the assets because they got Miami's pick next year, right?
Boy, does this feel like a Patriots reclamation project.
Oh, man.
That's the one that pops to my head without sitting and, like, going through everyone's quarterback situations. But that feels like a thing.
Yeah. Isn't Cesario in charge now down in Houston too? Oh, allegedly.
Yeah.
I mean, Easterby's kind of, Casario.
Minnesota doesn't make the worst sense, I guess. After Kirk, they drafted a quarterback too, though. It's tough. Bears.
Okay.
Bears would be funny.
Yeah. I mean,
the Bears. It'd be funny if the Bears gave up like 3 first-round picks for him or something, just overpaid when they could have drafted. They could have drafted him. That would have been the content would be good.
Yeah. I think the idea of Philly as a reclamation isn't crazy either. I mean, they embraced that city embraced Mike Vick. I would imagine that they would help rehabilitate Deshaun Watson's image as well. And you're right, Patriots have kind of done a decent job of picking guys up like this and giving them a little CPR in the old PR space. Okay, well, I think we've fairly covered what matters most for this team. The fact that Bill O'Brien is gone does open up a huge question mark in terms of coaching. David Culley was the passing game coordinator or the wide receivers coach or both for the Baltimore Ravens last year. This was a hire.
That's what I'm hearing. Yeah.
This hire came out of freaking nowhere. What in the world do you think they saw or heard in the interview that they were like, gotta be Culley, gotta go with David Culley?
They're like, will you accept our mess?
Okay.
This is a guy who's been divorced twice, has like 3 kids with 3 different people, owes alimony, child support. He's in jail at the time. He's writing pen pal letters, and some woman agrees to marry him. Like
Okay.
that's David Culley. Like, all right, you know what? I'm a mess myself. And I don't know. I shouldn't even say that. David Culley's probably a nice guy, but like somebody who's willing to come accept this mess, knowing that they're probably a Zach Taylor. They're like a placeholder. Like they may never be here long enough to see fruition. And truthfully, once you get anything on your resume that says I've been a head coach in the NFL, like you're just set for life. You can go be a coordinator somewhere. You can go be an assistant head coach. You can be a consultant to a team. Like once you've been a head coach anywhere, like you're fine. You can always get a job. So I don't blame David Culley for taking over this mess. Like it's a good deal all around.
What's the worst case scenario? You go 0-17 and you're the only coach ever to coach an 0-17 team?
That would be fun.
What do you think the realistic I think that is on the table, honestly. I think that's entirely possible. It's a low risk deal to take this job though, right?
Yeah, no, and that's the other thing too. Like the expectations are so damn low this year. The expectations just eventually they'll have to be there a couple years down the road. You got to know, like, man, if they raise the expectations on me in a couple years, I'm probably in trouble because they've left me with so little to work with. It's going to be tough for me to get them anywhere. But again, can't turn it down. You don't go turning down head coach jobs,
no,
unless you're what's his name over in New England there,
Josh McDaniels.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say we see game 1 play out as expected, and Jacksonville goes into Houston and really does just dump on them. And it's like, oh, Houston's not a -7. They're like a -14, right? In terms of power number. Like how fast will the market really it doesn't even have to be a 59-0 kind of a deal. Let's just say the Jags go in there and they're up by 4 touchdowns early in that one or something crazy like that. How quickly does the market really bring these numbers down? Like, could we see Houston at Cleveland week 2 as 20-point dogs? Could we see Houston at Buffalo week 4 as 20-point dogs?
Yeah, no, for sure. If they're, 2019 Miami bad and they're going to lose games like that, the defense stinks. Tyrod Taylor's not getting it. The receivers are overrated. You have a couple decent linemen and that's it. Like it's a team that could probably, losing that bad to Jacksonville seems unlikely, but if it did happen, the market reacts fast, but never fast enough, I don't think. Although once you get down to like week 4.
Yeah, it could be a big number for Buffalo. So I'm wondering if we just lay the 14 with Buffalo now and laugh when it's 25 or 28 or something. Anyway, I'm not being serious. I'm just kind of looking at trying to think through how the market is going to really evaluate these guys. Because like you said, like, the market thinks nothing of them now. They're the 32nd best team in terms of power rating, but the implied number of
range
-7,
so much lower.
It could definitely get lower, and 7 might not be fair. Like, what were the Jets last year in terms of power rating when they were at their worst?
Like a 12.5, 13.
Would you have lined those Jets as favorites against these Texans?
No, and that's where we're stuck. We're stuck right now, not knowing. Like these numbers are like nice median projections where they're not too hard one way, too hard the other way, just based off we don't know about Watson. So without Watson, that's a pick 'em.
Okay. So basically we're saying is there's room for the Texans number to go down, and it could go down a lot.
Precipitously.
Right. Like some of the other teams we've talked about were like, they're kind of around 0. Like, yeah, you could go up 1 or 2. It could go down 1 or 2. This is like, we could be talking about this team going down 5 or 6 in terms of how much lower they could go from their preseason power number, which is interesting. Okay. Last note to point out about the Texans really kind of revolves of like, when can we expect a turnaround here? And I think I have some pretty strong expectations, some pretty strong opinions of the ownership, leadership combination here, and not really being bullish in any way, shape, or form that they do figure it out anytime soon. Are we going to get to the point where we get to like a NFL has to do the NBA Donald Sterling kind of thing and like forcefully like force the ownership group to move on, or force some people in power out? Because I mean, what free agent is signing with this team next year?
Yeah.
When are they ever going to be a competitive football team, especially if they trade Watson for 50, 60 cents on the dollar?
And that's the thing about Easterby and really the leadership in general. It's not going to change, I don't think. And somebody, I don't remember who made the quote, but it's just like, the key to success for his success is just tricking one person who's powerful. Like you don't have to convince us. Like we don't matter. We don't sign the checks. We don't keep you in your position. But yeah, I don't see it improving greatly while he's still around. So it could be a long time. And I really don't know what fixes that. I don't think the league would step in. It's the Donald Sterling thing was something else. He was like, Marge Schott levels of crazy racist and awful. Some of those transcripts from some of the things he said, like, I don't think we can do it on the same grounds, but
okay.
That would be interesting if the league were to step in and be like, hey, you guys are just so shitty at this. Like, we'd like you to be good sometime.
Sir,
it's like the
sir, the question was, is this your handwriting?
Yes. That's such a good clip. So yeah, the leadership stinks, the fish rots from the head, and this team isn't getting better until they do something there. And it sucks because the timeline for Easterby to have a job is indefinite.
Yeah, and
somebody likes him.
Yeah, right. And you happened 1 year ago today, you had a quarterback who is a top 5 quarterback in this league, which is the hardest thing to come by. And he was young. And now it's all gone to hell. So let's move on to a team that may have gotten a top 5 quarterback in this league and is young also. And that is the Jacksonville Jaguars, who had the first overall pick this last season, used it on Trevor Lawrence, then did some questionable things with the rest of their draft, followed by some interesting front office coaching, hiring decisions. I guess let's start with the 2020 season. Where did it go wrong? Was it really as bad as the record of 1-15 and first overall? What was your general take on? Did you bet any Jaguars games last year, by the way? Because I'm struggling to remember if I bet more than maybe one.
I used Indy as a Survivor League pick week 1. I do recall that. God,
I forgot that was their only win.
Yeah. They were tied late with like Tennessee as well, which was, again, it's like, are we doing this? Is this a fucking thing? But yeah, let me just do a quick search of my bets here from last year, see if I have a Jags pick. I really don't think I got involved.
Thursday Night Football, did you take the Dolphins against the Jags? The Jags were favored in that game. How wild is that in hindsight?
I'm not seeing a Jags. I'm not seeing Vikes Jags over 50.5, week 13.
Do you want to know what that final score was?
It was a winner. What was it?
27-24 in overtime.
50.5.
That's why you get the best. That's why you got to get the best of the number, kids.
That I would love to see what that one closed at, because I feel like some people didn't win their over in that one.
I'm going to look that up now while you reflect.
You should look that up. That's interesting. That is why you get the bet. It changes your whole season, man. It only makes like 100 bets a year. If you get one to flip on a half point like that on an early number, feeling good about life.
Huge. It's huge.
Huge. Yeah, I don't think it doesn't matter how bad a team is. Like winning 1 or 0 or even 2 games is still outlier. Like they did it themselves. Like it wasn't full on tanking, but some of the quarterbacks they started Jake Luton, whatever for several. Like that's not a team that's actually considering trying to win games. Who's the guy with the damn long neck that Will knows?
Glennon.
Glennon started. Like there was concerted efforts not to be a good team. And that's fine. I'm fine with that. Let's go get Trevor. Tank for Trevor. That's whatever. You don't want to win like 6 games. You don't want to be in the middle of the first 5 and end up getting the 3rd or 4th quarterback. So I'm cool with it. But yeah, they were pretty rough. They were a little bit of a squirrely team at times. They do have some decent receivers. I don't think this roster is nearly as bad as some other ones, as some of these other teams we're going to talk about. Like, I do like Shark. I like the addition of Jones, Mr. Chenault. I don't really know shit about their tight ends. I think they probably need some help there. T-Law better be good. The line could be better. Defense was rough. I think the defense, I guess I have to look at what my rankings would be for them this year, but it was a team that had a couple good receivers and didn't have anything really going for them as far as defense, didn't really have anything going for them as far as quarterback, and that's how you win one game. So, and it looks like, yeah, my defensive rankings aren't great. Like, I have this as a very, very bad defense again, which is wild coming off of 5 years ago, how good this defense was. Our guy, I almost said Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow might come up eventually, but our guy Blake Bortles taking them to the AFC title game. How far this team has fallen.
Man, that was a quick fall. That was
but, your thoughts on 2020?
Well, first of all, that Vikings total closed 51.5. So that is why you get the best of the number.
Could have middled it.
You could have middled it. And overall, I thought 1-15 was deceptive in terms of that final win-loss compared to what my average power number was for them during the course of the season. I think they were very strategic in tanking for the 1 seed, and that was probably the only sort of organizational decision that I thought was good that the Jaguars have made in the last calendar year. Otherwise, I'm fine with the organizational decision also to move on from the Doug Marrone era. That was fine to turn the page. Then things went a little sideways for them. I don't know yet if I think I at least when the Urban Meyer hire came across the wire, my gut was 50-50. Like, this could work out, this might not. I wasn't really bullish about it. I wasn't really like, well, sell some Jags. These guys don't get it, right? And then since then, everything that has happened, all of his quotes, some of his decision making from a leadership standpoint, as kind of the face of this franchise now, has moved moved the needle for me into like the 60-40 range. Like, this probably isn't going to work. Would you say that? Would you agree with that?
We brought this up on when we were talking about kind of first coach fired in an earlier episode. We said, usually rookie head coaches are off the table, but what if he just quits? Well, we'll get to him more, but yeah, I'm in a weird spot with this team as well. I know you took a bigger number early in the season for them to win the division, because I think this division, there's some definite variance that could happen. And I know both of us aren't as high on Tennessee as the market is, but yeah, this team could just be another top 5 draft pick next year.
Yeah. So let me talk
a lot of pieces.
Let me talk you through that decision making. So even though I'm cooled on Urban Meyer being the long-term answer, even though I am optimistic that Trevor Lawrence is an NFL caliber player, I think he is going to be a good NFL quarterback. This is not a hot take. I still I played the Jaguars to win the South, and when we knew that Wentz was the guy in Indy, like as soon as that puzzle piece was in place, it was like, oh, okay, I don't like Wentz, so I don't think Indy is fairly priced right now. And Art Smith leaves Tennessee to go to Atlanta. Oh, I don't like the offensive scheme now for the Titans. I think their price is not fair. And then the Watson saga unfolds, the Culley hiring unfolds, and I'm like, oh, Houston might lose 17 games. I don't like them. I don't think their price is fair anymore. And so it was kind of by process of elimination that it was like, well, if I think 3 out of the 4 teams in this division are overpriced by the market, then the 4th of those teams might be value. What's their price? to win the South. And at the time, the Jaguars were 11-1. I was like, man, like they're going to draft Trevor Lawrence. People are going to get excited about that. They have a bunch of other draft picks. If they hit on any of those guys, this might be a frisky team. So I'll bet this 11-1. I saw, and I've seen it march all the way into like 7-1. So let's check the current odds on the Jacksonville Jaguars. What the heck? At WinBet right now, you can bet the Jaguars to win the AFC South at 12-1. So I would say that is a plus EV bet still, especially considering that some of the market makers have moved into the 7-1 range. Even in the face of my cooling temperature on the Urban Meyer regime. Andy, what is your feeling about the rest of these odds for the Jacksonville Jaguars? And do you want to kind of go through the whole rundown here for the people who are listening to the podcast?
Yeah, Super Bowl 100-1, AFC 40-1. I mean, I'm just listing things I won't be betting. AFC South 12-1. And yes, shop around. If there's a 12-1 and you bet a 7-1, you got 5% worse of a price.
Terrible. Terrible. You should never be doing that.
Yeah, I mean this
is 101.
And it's funny, like the difference in implied probability is the difference from minus 110 to like what, minus 15, or probably about minus 17.
More,
17.
Way more.
No, 5%. Yeah, I'm doing 5%. So what does 120 get us? 120 is 1 divided by 1.8.
Yeah, you're trying to get out to like almost 58.
I'm trying to get
which
to
is
like
about 125. Yeah, minus 110 versus minus 125 ish.
110 to 125. So just, if you want to equate it to that, if you're always betting minus 125 lines, you'd have a bad time. So do shop around. 5% difference in a market like this is pretty big. So find yourself. I meant to say 125. I think we'll say that. We'll go with that. So my brain isn't feeling so bad. But yeah, 12-1, probably halfway bettable. It depends how you feel about the Titans and really how you feel about Wentz. We've kind of elaborated on that already. To make the playoffs, yes or no? AFC, that's awful tough. It's awful tough to get in the wild card if you're going to be a team in flux like this. And you can look like the regular season win total is juiced to the under 6.5. Yeah, just don't really see this team being a sneaky team that sneaks into the playoffs. So like if you had to bet anything on there, it's probably an alt win under or alt win over or the AFC South.
Yeah. I'm probably taking an alt win over if I'm taking anything. Because I think you probably get 7.5 at like 3-1 ish. And then 8 wins, you're probably not making the playoffs in a very competitive AFC. You might not be winning the AFC South, but you could potentially cash that alt over. So I think that would be the way to attack the win total market. And again, a lot of it boils down to somewhat of an easy schedule. I guess, is it fair to say the easiest division in the AFC by margin is the AFC South?
Yeah, probably. Definitely can't make a case for the West.
You get to play the Texans twice.
3 playoff teams last year, and
you get to play the Texans twice, and you don't have a monster at the top of your division like the Chiefs or the Ravens or the Browns or the Bills. So that's a pretty good deal. That's a really good deal, actually, if you ask me.
Yeah, I don't hate that.
So it's
Looking at their schedule, though, how are we going to get to these wins? How many wins? Let's say, all right, I'm going to stop, and we have the schedule pulled up here. We're going to look at it, but we're going to stop quick and go back to that point. If Tennessee flounders under poor offensive coordinating and some other issues that might regress to the mean, we'll get to them in our next episode. If the Wentz experience doesn't work out again, and we don't think it will, how many wins does Jacksonville need to win this division?
I think they need 9.
That's probably fair.
9 and 8 wins this division if the two things that you just laid out come to fruition.
10 games on the schedule where they are either a favorite or less than a field goal or less dog.
So they need them all.
10
or
coin
except
flips.
for one.
Yeah, 10 coin flips. San Francisco, only a 4-point dog. We've yet to see what happens there. A couple of these, again, Indy, big dog at Indy, but if the Wentz experience is really poor, maybe that's more of a coin flip than a plus 7.5. But yeah, I think you'll know right away if this is happening or not, because they need to rip through this early part of the season.
Yeah, you'll know by the bye.
They need to be, 4-2 is the absolute worst you could be and still win this division?
Yes. If they're not 4-2 at the bye, then pull the ripcord.
Kiss it goodbye.
Yes. And if they are
it's like, oh shit, Tennessee's really good. Like,
hey, and let's talk about the flip. Let's talk about the flip side of that. If they are 4-2 or 5-1 at the bye, what should you be doing with your 12-1 Jags to win the AFC South ticket? You should be looking for other opportunities in that division to buy low, right?
I'd be buying some Tennessee.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if they beat Tennessee too? Like,
of course, no. That's the
you're
perfect
buying
setup.
Tennessee.
That's
hard.
the perfect setup. That's the perfect setup. And it's that is the spot that makes or breaks this bet, because that is week 5. Tennessee is on a second of back-to-back roadies, and the Jags have an extra 4 days to prepare because they are coming off of Thursday Night Football. So presumably that is a more competitive game than the market would expect. You may get the Jags as like a 3-point dog by the time you get there, just depending on what happens with both of these teams. But if they can win that game week 5, they head to London, presumably with 3 or 4 wins and a chance to go into their bye at 5-1 or 4-2, at which point, yes, you are definitely shopping Tennessee. Let's talk about the
best laid plans, though.
Yeah,
let's get to let's play devil's advocate here and what can go wrong, because I think we've talked about what can go right. Like, what can go right quick is that Urban's okay. The quarterback is instantly impact. The receivers take like him to a duck to water. There's a good rapport there. They're good receivers. The offensive line plays a little better. And the defense is, what's the defensive ceiling here? Like 20th?
Let's look what their power number is right now for defense. It's got to be dang low.
26 for me, 26, 27.
Yeah, I have them as the 28th best defense.
I'm optimistic, apparently. Yeah, so like their ceiling, maybe if some things happen,
can only go up.
It could go down too, I guess. But if this defense can get their shit together a little, that's going to be a big part of it. They did draft a 2nd-round corner. They drafted a safety. They picked up a corner. Yeah, Shaq Griffin got picked up. They actually picked up some defensive players as well. So maybe, but again, it's not. I don't think we see some rapid turnaround and all of a sudden it's an above average defense. So the defense has to be serviceable below average, and this offense has to work. But the real is, like, this team goes through that first 6, and the first 6, if you're not watching, it's at Houston, which we talked about with Houston, Denver, Arizona, both at home. Some teams were a little lower on. At Cincy, who's still a little bit of a mess, and then Tennessee and Miami coming to town. Better teams, but they are at home, so you get 4 of the first 6 at home and then a bye. If things go wrong, we get to that bye and they're like 2-4. What happened? Is it more on Urban? Do you think it's more likely that it's just the transition from college to pro for Trevor? Is it just not a good team?
It's because the offensive line has failed. That's the Achilles heel that I have my eye on with these guys.
We just brought Cincinnati up. I think that's probably a good comp for that. Like,
it's an extremely fair comp. Like a guy who comes a little too like spooky.
Spooky. Yeah, we don't want an injury. I don't want to see the full comp, but the comp would be that I think Joe Burrow was very good last year. I think he really was fine under pressure. I think he stepped up and brought himself into the league and played as well as he could for somebody that young. And you see a lot of rookie quarterbacks that don't compose themselves that well. He just had such a horrible offensive line that it was never going to be a good result. And obviously you got the worst result possible. But like, if Trevor, even if Trevor's great, if this offensive line's garbage, you're going to see, Cincinnati 2020 2.0, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where it goes wrong if it goes wrong, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because kind of just like Cincinnati, like they invested a lot in their defense last year's draft. They invested a lot in their defense this year's free agency. They on top of drafting a couple of guys that may make an impact this year defensively. They got the first safety in the draft in Tyson Campbell.
The first running back, second running back.
Second running back and Travis Etienne. Which was a very controversial decision. Very did not love that. But they went out and they got some decent free agents. So Malcolm Brown, he's a fine guy to have kind of in the interior there to anchor you to help your run stop. And yeah, Shaq Griffin, they paid him a bunch of money, but now you can put him opposite Henderson. And you can have, you have Herndon and your young kid, Tyson Campbell to potentially cover slot, play some nickel, play some dime. So the defense the defense to me at, market wide ranked at 28th is as low as I think they can probably be. I think if anything on the defensive side gels, if they have some turnover luck, this is going to be a defense that vaults up into the middle class of the NFL pretty quickly. The offense, I would say the opposite. The offensive expectations are reasonably high, considering the moving parts here. The rookie quarterback is, you could get something as good as Justin Herbert. You could get something, as suspect as Sam Darnold a couple years ago. Like this could be, either way, and I wouldn't be surprised. But the offensive line has a ton to do with this. I will say that I think of Trevor Lawrence as more of an athlete and as a better NFL body and potential to kind of make plays with his legs more so than Joe Burrow personally. So I have higher hopes that he makes it through a 17-game schedule with an offensive line that has question marks. Focusing specifically on this offensive line, they franchise tagged Cam Robinson. Oof. He might be bottom 5 left tackle in this league, and they had to franchise tag him. Any other question marks for you?
Yeah, I mean the whole thing kind of is a question mark if we're talking just line. But I'm not hopeful. Good left guard. Is that what we're going with? I'd like to look at some of these tight ends, I guess, a little too, see what we can do. I think a smart coach, and I don't know if Urban's a smart coach. Smart coach is going to help a bad line with tight ends and running backs and maybe not try to get his young guy killed. And hopefully that's the plan, because it's even like, what best case scenario, where would you rate this offensive line? Like if it reached its highest potential this year, is it middle of the pack? Probably not. Like it's similar to the defense, where if this is a good offensive line, relative to their skill level, relative to their range, it's still below average. So I guess, we're really going to be relying on Urban to do stuff. And like you said earlier, and we didn't even get to, Chris Doyle thing yet. We haven't talked at all about the Tim Tebow thing. But the Tim Tebow thing might work out. He's just a fucking athlete. But Chris Doyle, I'm not hopeful either. But the Urban thing is the biggest thing. Like, he's the leader. He's coming in as a new coach. Never coached the pros. It's been a couple years off retirement now. He was great, but I think he's probably going to bring, it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. He liked to run the ball. He's probably going to continue to like to run the ball, which people might say, oh, that's good for a rookie quarterback. Maybe not for developing him. They made a weird draft pick in Etienne. It's I'm trying to find the stat I had on our guy down there. It was like a really good year. Yeah, James Robinson, most scrimmage yards ever for an undrafted rookie. And they go ahead and, we better get another running back in here. A couple of them, actually. So
absolutely brutal decision making.
The decision making between Doyle, between Tebow, between drafting, like, you'd be like, oh, you got Trevor. Well, that wasn't a decision. That's like being, it's like Cal getting Mancini in the home run draft. Like, he was there. You had to pick him. Like, you're not going to not pick Trevor Lawrence first. So the decision making from Urban doesn't make me hopeful for anything this year. Like that's the crux. I don't think Trevor Lawrence's range, I don't think the bust factor is always there, but I don't think it's a high enough percentage where I'm terribly worried. Like, the main concern for me, outside of obviously the offensive line and defense, is like Urban Meyer just sucking at this, going full Petrino, going full Saban, going full. I mean, there's been a bunch of college coaches that have come up like, oh, this isn't working. Going full Cliff Kingsbury. Sorry, Cliff.
Is run pass split on early downs going to be your key indicator for evaluating Urban's offense?
I think that's a good point. A lot of these teams with new coaches, and not only that, but let's talk Tennessee on Wednesday. New offensive coordinators, not just new coaches. Start looking at some of these teams with new offensive coordinators and see what their tendencies are going to be on some of these first downs. If they're calling really shitty plays, if we're calling a lot of runs on first downs, if we're calling runs on second and long, if their success rate just drops off the face of the earth from like an Art Smith to the new play caller in Tennessee, like there's some pretty quick indicators that they're bet against teams or maybe not bet on teams anymore. So that's I think that's something really to watch for, because we really, really don't know what we're gonna get with some Cully too. Like what we don't know what we're gonna get from that team at all. We don't have a playbook on any of these guys. So Urban Meyer,
we got a little something. Urban Meyer brought in offensive coordinator whose name you would know.
Fucking yeah, Bevel. Yeah, I think
Bevel.
If we get Bevel ball.
So I guess so basically, do you think Urban designates offensive responsibilities to Bevel, and we can get a somewhat, we can go back to the mid 20 teens Seattle teams, take a little from that, in terms of what to expect of an offense here?
I guess like the same thing probably goes with coordinators and coaches. Maybe we learned our lesson with Mike McCarthy. Like when he said, oh, maybe he can change. He said he's going to change. No one changes. So maybe we do kind of have the book on Bevel. I'm not sure how big of a hand each of them will have in the offense. And obviously it changes when you have a bad offensive line like that. I'd say obviously a rookie quarterback too, but having a young quarterback, having a bad offensive line, having probably what he views as a couple really good running backs is going to change the sequencing, the play calling, and things like that. So, yeah, something to keep an eye on. I don't have a lot of faith in Bevel making it one of those teams. I don't think Russell Wilson's walking through that door. Sean Alexander might be.
Interesting. Bevel's most recent stop, obviously, he was the offensive coordinator in Detroit, took over for Matt Patricia when he was relieved of duties. Never really had a full enough chance, I don't think, to install much of an offense in Detroit. His first season there was the one where Stafford got hurt, and second season was a loss from the get-go. So it's tough for me to really tell you that Darrell Bevel is going to fail at this. But it's, I am evenly split here again, kind of 50-50 on that aspect of this coaching staff. And there are enough weapons around here. They bring in Marvin Jones, obviously familiar with the Darrell Bevel system. They have DJ Chark, who I have high respect for as a wide receiver. Chenault Jr. is a nasty player. James Robinson, as you mentioned, is a nasty player, especially in the passing game. Travis Etienne, they may deploy him in the passing game as well. So there are certainly signs, and there's a pulse here for this offense to get into the middle class of the NFL if they have competent offensive line play, if they can keep Trevor Lawrence healthy. I guess moving on to Trevor. Projecting his success in the NFL over his 5-year rookie deal. He makes the playoffs over under 1.5 times.
Under.
Really?
I can see one. It's going to take a bit. Well, and
AFC South's a mess, man.
I know, but you got to look at the full landscape. Like the AFC's tough. Tennessee, like
AFC
we're gonna
South.
Okay, I know we're gonna dog
over under one AFC South title on his rookie deal.
One. Like that's how they're getting in. Like I think maybe 4 or 5 years from now they win a division title. And also, it's really hard to predict these things out because I like the management group in Indy, outside of what's happened with Wentz, like Indy could be a turnaround team. Like Indy could just jettison Wentz, get a free agent or a young quarterback in, and all of a sudden, like Indy is a truck for 5 years. Like,
all right,
I think one is a fair guess, and it's tough. But as far as young quarterbacks go, like there's worse situations. Like he does at least have some good receivers and some good backs, receiving
and an
backs.
easy division, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's not. Yeah, there's a lot worse. Yeah, getting to play Houston twice. Like there are worse things that can happen. Like and maybe maybe that'll be the way he acclimates himself so easily.
Yeah.
Playing in a division that's all your opponents are kind of shitty. He's an ACC quarterback.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, I mean, it's got like you just get to put BC on the schedule every year.
So here's where I was going with that. What are the chances that we are living through the Andrew Luck regime part 2? But that this is literally like, guy is a can't miss prospect. He's in a division that is winnable. He has a management team that is somewhat questionable around him. That an offensive line that's going to make him, leave him on the run. A defense that may never be that great, and yet because of his play, his standout play, he takes them to a couple of division titles early in his career. I mean, this feels like I feel like I've seen this before.
Yeah, maybe they put up down there in Duval. They put up one of those AFC championship participant fucking banners. I could see that. No, it does feel like maybe when they win, like I said, they could win a division in 3, 4, 5 years. Maybe when they do that, it's with a different coach. I can see that. Like, it's hard to say, oh, this guy's he can't miss. Like, there's always a bust factor. Like, there's always, but I think he's good enough. And man, I don't like the Andrew Luck comps. He'd look weird with a neck beard, but yeah, I think he's enough of the times, a high percentage of times he'll be a hit. Like he works out. He's a good quarterback in the league. And if it is a weaker division, it's hard to predict a division down the road. Like we'd have never 5 years ago. I'm not sure we'd have, like, let's say the Eagles just won the Super Bowl. Dak's down there. Eli's getting older, but whatever. Obviously, Washington's doing what they're doing. I don't think we'd been like, hey, in 3 years, this division's going to be so bad, a team with 6 wins might win it. Like, it's hard to predict a full division down the road. But I think, just Houston can be bad for a few years here. Tennessee might come down off their high horse, and it might be a nice trajectory for the kid.
So just for the sake of comps, on his rookie deal, Andrew Luck went to the playoffs 3 times. He won the division twice, and that was with Coach Chuck Pagano and with GM Ryan Grigson, with a defense that never finished above league average by my numbers.
Do you think he had better weapons, though? Maybe it's probably pretty close. He had better weapons, but these are weapons that could evolve into that. Like, these are 3 good receivers that could be better. Maybe not Marvin Jones. I think Marvin Jones is maybe, I don't know.
Probably on the downside. He's on the downside, yeah.
He's good, though. He's already good. So, yeah, I think the pros for him are definitely good weapons around him, easy division. He might just have that it factor. He might just be good. And again, he has an offensive line that might have him in a cast in week 2.
Andrew Luck took over a 2-14 team. That was their leading passer was Curtis Painter.
Purdue's finest.
He did it with his top rusher was it? Who's Ballard? Is that Vic Ballard? Was that his name?
Vic Ballard was good.
Vic Ballard was his top rusher, and his top receivers were Reggie Wayne and T.Y. Hilton. So that was a pretty solid crew.
Yeah, it's hard to shit on Reggie Wayne.
Dwayne Allen was his tight end his rookie year. His offensive line was bottom 10 in the league that year. And Andrew Luck as a rookie won how many games, Andy?
11.
11-5. Great memory. Did you pull that up or were you looking at it?
I was absolutely looking at that. They did not win that division, but yeah, they made the playoffs, I think.
They did not win that division. Who did win that division?
Our Houston Texans.
That's a good
Houston
call.
won the division every year back then.
Was it Matt Schaub and company at the time? Probably.
Honestly, I'm gonna look at a box score. They beat him
Was it?
late.
Yeah,
Here we go. Kobe Fleener caught a touchdown in that, and that was those are the Arian Foster years. T.Y. Hilton 70-yard pass from Andrew Luck. There we go.
that was Matt
the
Schaub.
Matt Schaub. Matt Schaub was actually had a good game that day.
Matt Schaub had a good year that year. He was definitely a Pro Bowler. Yeah, no, that was. I mean, I think the comps between Andrew Luck and Trevor Lawrence are going to be one of the main things that people talk about when they talk about Trevor Lawrence and the Jags this year. That's just the gut feeling. What do you think?
I think we're going to see too much of the comp that I already made that I hate, that I don't want to hear, is the Joe Burrow comp. Like, here's a guy with all the talent in the world that crushed it in college, and now he comes up and plays behind 5 bags of garbage, and he might get hurt. Like, I don't like that, and I worry about him. So yeah, I like your comp. I like where you're going with it, though.
Okay, all right. Well, he's so freaking mobile. Trevor Lawrence might like. What do you think? What do you think a fair rushing prop is for Trevor Lawrence?
Yeah, low key, he didn't really get a lot of credit for that, but he was mobile. He was
like he and it came on throughout his college career that he got more and more squirrely. Yeah.
Squirrelier, I believe is the term. Yeah, no, I don't know. It depends, because I think we've seen the advent of, I don't care who you are, there's design quarterback runs, because you're not Peyton Manning 2015 or whatever his last season was.
He's an athlete.
You're an athlete. Quarterbacks nowadays need to be able to run a few designed run plays, and we're going to have some for you. I'm assuming that's probably going to be a thing. So fair rush total, 400 yards.
Yeah,
that's high.
Okay. I don't know.
17 games though.
No, hold on. My point was, I think he probably gets around 400. I bet you can find a prop out there that's lower than that, though. I think if I was hitting the prop market on the Jags and you wanted me to make a play that my life depended on, I'm probably taking Trevor Lawrence rushing yards over. I think it's going to be too low. If it's even up.
The only caveat to that is, again, if he gets hurt, he's not running very far.
Yeah, but
like that one could die week 3.
So let's talk about that for a second. So one of the reasons that maybe the key for talking people down from Joe Burrow Rookie of the Year last year was potential for injury. And it was born out of 2 very key points. The first was offensive line poor. The second was somewhat of a slight frame, more of a college body than an NFL body.
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence is a bigger dude. 6'6", 220. He's going to have a little bit more physical resilience to the game in the NFL, in my opinion. That doesn't mean he can't blow an ACL. Even the Joe Burrow injury was kind of fluky. Yeah. But his instincts last year in times when the Clemson offensive line kind of came apart at the seams, he was gone. Go. And I think that kind of in the back of his head will keep him out of harm's way from an injury standpoint this year. And I guess you can move on to the last topic here, just sort of how they may be the beneficiaries of low expectations, while I track down what a fair price for Trevor Lawrence rushing yards is.
Yeah, I'm not sure we're going to have that, but yeah, low expectations. Those are your friends right now, especially if you're Urban and you really want to, which this is what I don't understand about like Urban Meyer. Did they go to him? Was there wind of him like, Urban wants to get back into the game? Like, I wonder how that whole went down, because man, the guy did have some, and people joke. I don't like these jokes, because like, what if the guy was seriously almost dead or something? Like, it's not a good joke, but he had health issues. Like, some people said he faked that or whatever, which I don't know if I buy that fully. So like, he was in a rough spot there for a bit, and he overstressed from the grind. I'm sure college football is different because you have to do so much recruiting, which it's a little easier at a university like that lends itself to recruiting, but the pro football grind, that's got to be stressful too. So I really wonder what his end game is. Like, is he excited about starting a long pro coaching career at this point? Is how old he is? I don't understand what he's doing, but if anything, his expectations are super low. He could lose every game, probably not get fired. I think they know where they're at. So, and that's where the pricing is, where it's at. And I think that's nice for Trevor too. Like, the pressure isn't on, like, hey, you have to save this franchise. Like, yeah, we're still kind of shitty. We're playing a London game, for Christ's sakes. Like, you guys just go out there and figure it out. We'll regroup next year. We'll get some nice draft picks. We'll bring in some more free agents. So I like a situation like this. I just wish they'd have drafted maybe a lineman instead of
Etienne.
Yeah.
Okay, we agree. So as noted, I played the AFC South for the Jags at 11-1. You can currently get that at WinBet at 12-1. That is a plus TV play by my numbers, and I think there is a reasonable likelihood that you have a high equity position come bye week, the way their schedule breaks, and at that point you can shop around if you think someone else can steal the division. As far as the Trevor Lawrence rushing yards prop, where I like the over.
Did you find anything?
I did. You want to guess what it is?
Oh, 325.5.
Holy shit. How did you guess that?
I found it too. I was pulling it up as you were too. I like that though. That was fine. I shouldn't have said anything.
It should have been like 3. You should have said like 324.5.
We didn't look that up before. That just kind of came up. 400 for me. So I'm higher than the market. You're higher than the market.
Honestly, and you know what?
Fair, because he could get hurt.
And you know what? Looking at that schedule, that's another one you could have in your pocket by the time you get to the bye. 50 yards a game. Come on.
You're just breaking one or two.
Come on.
Weird. He broke a 60-yard run against the Houston defense. Oh, I didn't see that happening. It wasn't even a designed run.
Oh, we should look out for this week in, week out, because I bet you it's going to, if it's 325 for the season and there are 17 expected starts for Trevor Lawrence, what is it going to be week in, week out?
Set that at like
20 yards a week?
24
God,
and a half.
Dude, can you imagine if they hung that week one? Jags, Texans, Trevor Lawrence rushing yards, 19 and a half.
We didn't give out a ton of bets on this one that we like preseason, but maybe we have a week one prop bet already. We're going T-Law over rushing yards week one.
19 and a half rushing yards, over 19 and a half rushing yards for Trevor Lawrence week one.
It'll be 21 and a half. I'm going to my 21 and a half minus 120 to the over. Put it in the bank.
Head fake it and we'll play it under at the market makers, and then we'll just go to the PPA.
If we can head fake it with $100. It's hard to get money on these. So, but yeah, I don't hate the over for the season. I'd rather do game by game, because the risk of injury is much less in one game than it is over a course of 17. So
also the Jaguars, circa alt over 7.5. You want to guess what that price was? I thought it was going to be better.
275
plus 190.
Oh, really? Christ, I really thought it was better.
I thought it was.
Oh, they were 6.5. That's only one game. Okay, yeah, I was thinking 2 games.
Yeah, so I think you're better off just swinging for that 12-1 for the AFC South, and then we'll come back and hit some of the other. We'll hit Indy, hit Tennessee, whoever, because Indy starts out their season somewhat hard, I believe. Well, you know what? Let's put a pin in this. We'll revisit it Wednesday when we cover the remainder of the AFC South.